Did you know that I am the only person in the entire game of Destiny 2 that uses Blink? I know, absolutely crazy, right? How could nobody else use this? Well, maybe you want to be as cool as me and you want to actually use Blink, or maybe you just want to try something different. This is definitely the video for you. I've been using Blink for well over 7 years, the entire lifespan of this game, literally since I discovered it back in Destiny 1 until now, and I'm going to give you all of the tips and tricks that I have over the literal years I've been playing this game so that you can get just as good as I am with a much shorter time span. I'm going to show you 5 different techniques today, but let's start out with the basics of blinking as our technique number 1. Blink is a momentum-based movement option. Unlike some of the other movement options in the game where you can kind of control when and how you end up actually arcing your jump, something like a hunter, right? When you're jumping in, whenever you press that jump button a second time, it's going to essentially override whatever momentum you currently have or add it to it. Blink is strictly 100% a momentum-based option, which means that if you're strafing away from where you're looking and you press the blink button, you will go straight back from the exact vector of the arc of your jump. Now that's a lot of technical jargon. Basically, if you imagine your jump is a sort of like a semicircle, if you draw a flat line where your actual momentum is carrying you, that is how Blink will carry you. So if you're trying to get the maximum distance, you're going to go for about a 45-degree angle. If you're trying to stay low to the ground, obviously you want to do it when your arc is just about at the top. If you're trying to go very high, you're going to press that button second time very, very early. Some quirks with Blink as you're starting to learn it. First of all, the very first thing I would tell you is be careful of the maps. You're going to have to learn where Bungie has forgotten that Blink existed. For example, on Endless Vale, it looks like that the ceiling above me is perfectly acceptable for me to blink into, but there's actually an invisible barrier in the range of your blink, which means that Bungie will prevent you from being able to blink up to that spot, which can be very disorientating if you're trying to get up into the air on smaller maps like this. The next thing is that unlike other movement options like your double jumps or your glides, Blink has a invisible cooldown timer. You cannot continuously blink. Frankly, I wish that that was removed. I wish that you could continuously use your blink without any type of cooldown, but you know, this is what we have. I'd say like maybe 6 seconds for one blink to recharge. With Astrocyte Verse is what you're seeing in the background here. All of the footage that you're seeing is Astrocyte Verse, and I highly recommend, as a side note, I highly recommend you use Astrocyte Verse if you're trying to get into Blink. It is a world of difference. I would not recommend Blink unless you had Astrocyte. Blink is bad without Astrocyte. It does have a recharge. Astrocyte allows you to recharge those blink charges a little bit faster, so you can kind of do 3 blinks in a row because it'll charge fast enough while you're in your second blink from the first blink to get your third blink. If you're having difficulty following along, don't worry, we'll get much more into this as we go. The last little bit of weirdness that happens with Blink is that if you are under the effect of some type of slow, or if you hit geometry a little bit weird, you might end up blinking yourself into the ground so hard that you die. The second technique here is the double blink. You can actually, with Astrocyte, blink twice in the air. This is a great option if you are blinking up into the air and realize you don't want to be a big play pigeon and you need to get back to the ground in a really fast fashion. You can just blink a second time. It also can allow you to cover really large gaps with ease. If you blink into the air and you continue to keep your sights in the air, because again, unlike the other movement options in the game, Blink is influenced by how your camera is orientated, which affects your momentum. You'll be able to slightly bring up the momentum of your jump, which will allow you to flatten out just enough so that you can cover large gaps like you can see here. The only downside of this is that it is very costly. Once you end up doing that double blink, you're not going to be able to blink again for a solid 6 seconds, so don't expect to be able to hit the ground blinking. The third one here is more of a mind game tool, so expect to use this more in a PvP scenario, but this is a false blink. If you jump and right before your momentum completely points downward, you blink another time, you will blink essentially stationary. Now at face value, this might seem kind of useless. Why in the world would I want to blink nowhere? But this is pretty good if you're trying to throw off an opponent who has been accustomed to seeing you blink, especially in a 1v1 scenario where they're really hyper focused and you've shown that you've had the prowess to be able to shut them down off of a blink multiple times. It can be great to just simply throw off your opponent's mind game just a little bit, or keep them guessing into where you're coming from, or maybe false check where your distance is. Moving right into technique number 4, these are blink cancels. They're more like blink combos, but basically what you can do when you are using a super, the super will override wherever it is in your blink. So if you press the super button right towards the very last like 25% of your blink animation, you will cancel it into your super, which will allow you to cover a distance a little bit further, as well as reduce some of the time that the target is able to see you pop that initial animation. It's not much, but every little bit helps in those more clutch scenarios, and it can be a great way to get just that tiny bit of edge. Another great tech with this, if you're using Nova Warp, is to cancel a warp, whatever your button is that causes you to do that little short distance teleport with the super itself, into a blink. Because that momentum is exactly flat, you'll be able to get what is effectively a much larger version of that with your normal blink, and you can cover a huge portion of the map in a fraction of the time. Basically, you can pop your super on the backside of something like Twilight Gap and end up in the enemy spawn in less than 6 seconds, allowing you to take that super like it's a thunder crash and kill a large portion of Guardians without them knowing what's about to hit them. Now, this last little bit of tech is something that I've discovered recently, and I'm a little disappointed in myself in how long it took me to put 2 and 2 together. But in case you aren't aware, Eager Edge is actually active on a sword even if you don't have any ammo. Now, at face value, that's more or less useless because obviously it's a sword without any ammo. You're not going to be able to kill things very well, but it does change your momentum. It gives you just a little bit of momentum shift, just like something like an Icarus dash, which is great because on our Blink class, you can use this to instantly change your momentum to a flat or horizontal angle. You can use this to blink up into the air, whip out your sword, do one single swipe, and then blink again to cover a massive portion of the map, just like you would in your super. Better still, if you're behind a weird piece of cover and you're pinned and you need to get from one side to the other, but you don't have the option of doing a run and jump, simply switch to your Eager Edge sword, swing and blink immediately, and your blink will be flat and you won't have to expose yourself with a run and jump in order to get out of there. Of course, this works even better if you have ammo, but obviously you're not going to have ammo all the time, so just having this as an option is fantastic. I recommend waiting just a little bit and getting a little bit accustomed to the timing of how you get this Eager Edge sword out, because at least for me, I find myself often just throwing a melee away for no reason, because I was expecting my sword to come out and it didn't. Perhaps a different button layout would help me out, as I have to hold down my swap button in order to get my heavy weapon out, so it might be a little bit different for you. I'm definitely considering changing my button now with how effective this ends up being. But this is a great tech and effectively can operate as a better version of the double blink, or like an upgraded version of the double blink. Absolutely give it a try. Just be careful if your momentum's already going down and you take out the Eager Edge sword. The Eager Edge sword won't be able to change your momentum enough to stop you from blinking yourself into the ground. You need to do it when you're effectively free falling, when there's that moment of suspension, when you're at the absolute peak of your jump, for you to use that Eager Edge to change the distance one more time. Last thing I want to show you here is this obstacle course. Go to Twilight Gap, put yourself on this side of the map, and follow this specific path. What this path will teach you is all of the basic tricks and techniques, as well as refine your individual inputs so that you can get blink down. You can blink backwards. It's another thing I mentioned about how it always follows your momentum. Learning how to do these small jumps around the map help you a lot, because you obviously don't have blink up all the time like the other tools. This little thread the needle spot right here is very difficult and it's very easy to mess up, so don't be ashamed if you don't nail it right away. But this is great because that window is so thin, it will make sure that you are absolutely nailing the precision of your blink. And this last little bit, just use your super and glide your way and warp your way back down to safety. And if you want to, maybe you could take the rest of your super energy and practice going from one side of the map to the other in the blink of an eye. I hope this was informative. I hope this was helpful. I'm currently still on vacation when the time of this video is coming out, so just let me know in the comments and I'll hopefully get back to you at some point. Make sure you're subscribed. Bless your faces, and deuces.